How much money do you need to be totally financially free? I'm going to show you what everyone from Kevin O'Leary to Andrew Tate says about how much you need in your war chest. And I'm going to give you my unique perspective about how to get there a lot faster by dramatically reducing your tax bill. I think a lot of people think, how much money would I need to retire? A lot of people so that they can literally quit their job and retire, and those of us who are entrepreneurs so that we can just feel a little bit different and put more energy and purpose into our businesses. And so there's all sorts of different numbers of how much you need to build into a nest egg to where you can just step back and live off of the so-called passive income. And I say so-called because I don't think anything that you ever have to manage, particularly stocks or bonds or crypto or any kind of portfolio that's throwing off income, is passive, and you had to work really hard to build it. But I want to show you what a couple of different influencers are saying about how much you can save, and then give you my feedback on that, as well as tell you how you can get to that number almost twice as fast as they would. Here's what Kevin O'Leary said and why he thinks $5 million should be your goal.
You have to get to a place where you have $5 million in the bank, because you can survive the rest of your life no matter what happens, and your family. You can take care of a lot of people making 6 or 7% of $5 million. When you make that, you have to set that aside and you don't risk it. Then after that, you can start to take risk capital and put it to work.
I think the number from Kevin O'Leary, I'm going to show you another clip from Kevin O'Leary in a minute. I think it's a little bit low, but this actually speaks to, well, first of all, what are you doing to make $5 million in the first place, where you still have plenty of time? Okay, set that aside. Now you've got a lot more runway. You're doing something that most people would consider risky. Kevin O'Leary, myself, maybe you, are entrepreneurs where we question ourselves, but we have this great optimism in ourselves to where you're moving fast enough. It doesn't seem risky to do the business that gets you to $5 million. What this sounds like to me is the idea I came up with years ago of the lifetime emergency fund, where theoretically you could just draw down the principal of $5 million for many years to come and not have to rely on a return. Now, obviously, at the very least, you could put it in some kind of term deposit and, get us these days as much as 5%. 5% on, $5 million is going to throw off, $250,000. He's talking about dividend stock investing, plus maybe there's a little bit of capital appreciation you could take out for his, 6 or 7%. So could you live on $250,000 or $300,000? You absolutely could. I like his idea, the $5 million of, this is something where maybe you just draw it down. Obviously, inflation in recent years has been a force to where that $5 million, a couple of years ago might have been, worth $6 million in today's terms. And so, for someone who's, in their 30s or 40s, the drawing down does get dicey. But if you run out a savings chart on, again, even just putting it in the bank at 1 or 2% interest rates that we had a couple of years ago, you could still have this a runway, just drawing it down to zero before you die. That's where I think the $5 million number works. Here's what else Kevin O'Leary had to say.
What amount of money would you say it takes for someone to be wealthy, or at least comfortable?
It depends what you want out of your life. It's all about lifestyle. You can live off $500,000 in the bank and do nothing else to make money, because you can make off that about 5% in fixed income with very little risk, or you can make 8.5%, 9% if you put some of it in equities too, and we're willing to ride the volatility. Do not invest in your brother's restaurant or a bowling alley or a bar or all that other crap. You'll lose your money on that.
I absolutely agree in the brother's restaurant. Absolutely agree in the bars. To me, that's stuff that you just have more money than you know how to invest in. You just want to take a flyer. And even in my yield portfolio, I didn't mention it when I talked about this recently, I bought some shares in the REIT, the Real Estate Investment Trust that owns the Petronas Towers, because I've loved them since I'm 15 years old. It's not a bad yield, actually, and the stock will do okay. But I did it more as kind of a sentimental thing, just because I can afford to do that. And if it goes down a little bit, I'll just collect the yield in perpetuity. Now, the $500,000 number does certainly seem low, and that's a number where you're really going to be careful. I don't know, 5 or 6% of that. I mean, where are you living on 25 grand? We've talked about the cheapest places in the world to live. Speaking of Malaysia, I mean, I think Kuala Lumpur might be on the top of my list. I've said it's the best value place in the world to live. I have a home there. Nomad Capitalist Live is coming there again this year. So go to nomadcapitalist.com/live and find out how to join us at our 4-day annual event. We've got a lot of great speakers of Kevin O'Leary's ilk and other experts on lowering your taxes, investing overseas, and we're going to be hosting it at a hotel that is owned by a REIT you can buy. So check that out. But I think one reason to check out Kuala Lumpur is the quality of healthcare, the quality of life, the English, the weather, like everything. It's really cheap for everything that you get. So that's the kind of place I'd be living if I'm earning, if I have 500 grand stashed away. I almost wonder if he meant to say the 5 million and he just took a zero off somehow. But if you're making 5 or 6%, you're making 25 or 30 grand. I don't know where you're living in the United States or the UK or Australia on 25 or 30 grand, which, Kevin O'Leary lives primarily in the United States these days. So that number seems to be difficult. Now, I'm going to talk to you about some of the bigger numbers in a minute and where I think the numbers should be. For me, the secret that allows you to get there twice as fast is dramatically reducing your taxes. Kevin O'Leary was born in Canada. I think he's primarily now in the United States. He's paying high taxes on the stuff he's doing. And so if you have a business, which is what's bringing in this 500,000 to 5 million in his scenario, and rather than paying 21 or 25 or 28% corporate tax, and then when you take a distribution, you pay more, or if you're in the US, you have an LLC, you just pay 35, 40, 45% all in on the money you take out of your LLC. What if you ran that business overseas and you paid 0, or you paid 5? Or if you're an American, okay, you're probably going to pay a little something, but it's going to be a lot less than just staying in the United States. What if you could pay from 0 to 10%? It's a fair number that pretty much anybody could pay going offshore, allowing for some lifestyle adjustments. Kevin O'Leary, we talked about, he got citizenship in the UAE. Now, they do have a tax on a lot of different corporate structures now at 9%. Hey, still a better deal than what you're paying anywhere in the Western world. And so if you could pay even 9% tax, versus what you're paying now, wouldn't you save the $5 million faster? I take risks according to most people, but I see myself as an extremely conservative person. And so I like the idea of the lifestyle emergency fund. I've talked about my dividend portfolio that would put some people to sleep, but it just consistently churns out yield every year and it stays relatively steady. It just grows a little bit. It's not wild swings, ups and downs. There's no 100% growth in this portfolio every year, but I like that as a super conservative thing to, as Kevin O'Leary says, just put it to the side. Have some in cash, have some in yield, maybe have some slower growth stocks, have some real estate to make sure you've got a place to live. That's kind of my pie, my four pieces of pie in my personal plan, because I agree with what Kevin O'Leary is saying. And what I think he was what he was alluding to there was exactly what I believe, which is if you're an entrepreneur and you have your $5 million and you're set for life in his analogy, you don't want to stop. But now you get to play entirely for the business, because now you're not taking a salary out of the business if you don't want to. You can put all the money back into the business. You can really put the pedal on the gas. And to me, that's what separates people. I mean, some people, they get the 5 million, I'm done, I'm retired, I'm out, I'll live in the 300,000 a year. The entrepreneur says, well, okay, well, I'm going to make the bigger impact. And you're going to play the Warren Buffett game where I want the number to get as big as possible. And when I die, it all goes to charity. Like Warren Buffett does give to charity. He says, I don't give more because, I think I can build it bigger in my business. I can just put it back into more stock and I'll have more to give to charity in the future. Like that's the difference that I kind of like what Kevin O'Leary's saying. So that's his $5 million number. Now, whether you like him or you don't like him, here's what Andrew Tate has to say why it should be 20 million.
After $20 million, life is basically the same. If you don't want to buy a jet and you don't want to buy a yacht, you're never going to need more than $20 million. What's actually kind of amazing to me is when I was poor, I thought, if I got rich, I'd buy all this stuff. And now I'm rich and I can buy anything I want. And there's nothing to buy. There's nothing to buy. Clothes, I already have too many. My wardrobe's completely full head to toe. Don't wear most of them. Diamond watches, you get 10. How many do you need? Cars, I have 28. I drive like 4 of them. Like, what's there to buy? 20, 25 million, that's as good as life can really get. You're flying private, you're staying in the best hotels, you're eating what you want, you drive the car you want, you wear the clothes you want, you have the watch you want, and that's it.
I think Andrew Tate is probably a bit more of a spender than I am. 25 million. Okay, listen, I finally broke down and I took a couple of private flights within Europe over the Christmas holiday. I can't, like the idea of like, I'm going to fly from Bogota to Kuala Lumpur, and it's 300 grand. If I 25 million, 250 million, it's just like a little rich for my blood. I like to spend, I like to keep things frugal. And so obviously the more money you make for someone who has my mentality, if you want to do that really nice stuff, that's why 5 million, I don't think is enough. So he's saying $20 million. And, don't you hate it when you have 10 diamond watches? I don't know what to buy anymore, damn it. Obviously, there's the old adage. I mean, more stuff doesn't help. Yeah, I probably don't like the diamond watches. It's nice to have a few watches. But yeah, eventually all the stuff that you thought was cool is like, all right, whatever, I've done that. The number that I've heard from people, from bankers that I've gotten along with, to people who've sold their companies, is $100 million. And they say after that, I mean, forget passive income on the income. They say above that, there's really nothing you're going to do. I mean, you're not going to buy the world's biggest yacht with that, but you can buy a nice boat for $10 million. And when you have $100 million and $10 million goes away, again, it kind of sends shivers up my spine a little bit, but you're going to be fine, right? I mean, I think for people like me, the psychology of just getting comfortable, of letting the money go and knowing you're still going to be okay is good. But the real number I've heard is after 100 million, it's just totally for show. It's just, I want a bigger yacht. I want a bigger plane. I mean, you can buy planes and yachts and you'll still have plenty of money, and then you can invest the rest of the money and live off of that. For me, I like the number that the banking industry, the wealth industry uses, which is $30 million, as that's what they call an ultra high net worth individual. So there's high net worth, there's very high net worth, and there's ultra high net worth individuals. There's about 600,000 of them that we know. Surely there's more than that, but let's say it's 600,000 people in the world. If you get to 600,000 of 8 billion, you're doing pretty well. And let's take the Kevin O'Leary story. So Kevin O'Leary's more of how do I get on passive income? Andrew Tate is more of, can I pay for the jets? Obviously, passive income can pay for the jets, can pay for the watches. And if you're getting to a certain point and stopping, if you say, okay, listen, I got to 30 million, I'm done. Well, then the passive income is to pay for the stuff that you want. And maybe this year it's watches, and next year you decide to do something else. You could invest in the bank these days, and it probably won't last forever with interest rates going to go down, but you can get $1.5 million. Now, again, let's use my tax story. If you have $1.5 million, you can live in a tax-free or a territorial tax jurisdiction. You can move around every decade to some country with a 10-year tax exemption. You can live in a non-dom country, and you can say, hey, I'm going to spend most of my money outside of the country. You can move to Ireland or Malta or Cyprus or something like that and say, hey, I'm going to spend only a couple $100,000 in the country, and then I'll go to Dubai and drive my race cars, and I'll go over here and buy this, and I'll go over there and buy that. And, your tax bill might be, 10 or 12%, something like that on passive income when you're not working for it. Or you can live in a tax-free country and you can just pay zero. But, that $1.5 million, you're going to get to keep most of that. And, listen, you can easily spend $100,000 in a month. I mean, you book one private jet flight from London to Dubai, there's $100,000. I mean, the idea that it's so hard to find things to spend money on, it is a little silly. You can spend money very easily. But how much of that do you really want? I mean, for me, if I'm flying from somewhere in Europe to my home in Kuala Lumpur, yeah, Turkish Airlines business class is perfectly fine for me. And if you spend enough money on your credit card, I mean, I think I have a couple million miles now that I could flip into Turkish Airlines miles and theoretically never pay for that flight. I have not flown a 12-hour flight private. Certainly, even a small private plane is a little bit less comfortable. So I was, okay, if you have endless money, you can fly from wherever you want to wherever you want. If you have endless money, you can buy a plane. And I know people have planes. But if we're just talking about, hey, how do I get to some level of wealth and then stop? Well, that's how much I'm going to rely on for the rest of my life. Then you have to make some kind of sacrifices these guys are alluding to. Now, what I've told you my personal financial plan is I'm going to have a pot of money and just know that it's going to be very stable. And okay, no matter what happens, businesses go up and down. Who knows what can happen? That money is always there. And if I ever had to start over, I have my skills. And then you treat your business as the growth investment. I think the keys here for me are tax efficiency on the money. If you'd like to be charitable, use the money to be charitable. The government's not the best charity, right? I choose charities that are important to me and I fund those. And then I live in places where they don't want to take half my money, whether it's on the way up or whether it's once I'm living off the passive income. So I think that, again, having that passive income, as much of it as possible, lets you put the most into your passions. If that's building a business, building a cause, if it's charitable giving, it goes more, it goes further. For me, if I've got $30 million, I'm not going to go and live in Nicaragua. But I do, I like spending part of my year in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. It's hard to spend money there. Now they got a Gucci store every 5 meters. And so you can go there and do that. But just going out for drinks, going out to nice places, going out for nice dinners, you'd have to really, struggle. Now, if you want to buy the finest champagnes and you want to buy caviar, you'll pay more for that in Asia than you will in Europe. But you don't want to, I mean, you're probably not going to do that every day. Having, what I would want to do with this kind of money is exactly what I've done. Diversified, having a couple homes around the world where you can spend time and you could have different experiences, because I'd rather, spend a month a year in Latin America and then get to go to Asia in the winter where it's warm, and then get to be, somewhere that I like in Europe, during the summer months, and travel around and meet friends. I'd rather do that than be like, I'm going to buy another diamond watch. I mean, it's a lot more satisfying to be able to go and explore different cultures, at least for me. And so I think $30 million, if you take my number, whether that's in dividend stocks, whether that's just cash, you can easily, and I think relatively safely, turn that into, $1.25 million, $1.5 million, $1.6 million a year. And if your taxes are in good shape, you can, that can go a long way. And you'll probably end up having plenty to donate. And you could argue you could force yourself to spend that money to enjoy it, or you could just kind of pile it back into the portfolio. So I think $100 million means you really have nothing else to buy other than just showing off. $30 million is a comfortable retirement. $5 million is, with Kevin O'Leary's number, is you're in good shape. I don't know what this $500,000 is about. Leave a comment below. Click the subscribe button while you're at it if you want to hear more about how to keep more of your own money and be more free and take advantage of opportunities in other places where they would like you to be there. And tell me how much you think you need to be totally financially free and be able either to step away from it all or to step into it all and do more with a greater clarity.